The air over the Ohio River wavered in late August heat, the water flat and bright below the sandbar locals called Newburgh Beach. On the Kentucky side, a woman in a red plaid swimsuit lay on a towel with a paperback folded on her chest. Across the river in Newburgh, Indiana, a man stepped onto his back porch and raised a telescope he used to track barges. He swung it toward the beach out of habit and froze. A bare-chested, heavy-set man with a thick beard was moving out of the trees behind the woman. He bent, grabbed a fistful of hair, and hauled her up. The woman twisted, kicking, a hand slapping at the wrist that held her. Something metal flashed low, what looked like a handgun. The man dragged her into the trees in a jerking line. The witness tried to dial and keep the lens on the path at once. Leaves shook. The towel lay empty. At 12:45 p.m. on Saturday, August 26, 1995, the first deputies crested the levee. Troopers stretched tape between drift logs, marked the path mouth with numbered flags, and built a sketch. 6 feet, jeans, no shirt, thick beard, possibly a net over his head, a pistol. A scrap of red fabric lay in the sand near the path. Drag marks scalloped the soft ground. The beach sat east of Henderson near the Spotsville Bend, a place families used for summer afternoons. Helicopter rotors thumped slow circles over the river, while boats worked the bank in arcs. The woman on the towel was Heather Teague, 23 years old, 5'2", slight brown hair, green eyes. She had scoliosis and a small birthmark on her right side. She had come alone that week. When the first sweep ended, she was gone, and the sand offered only partial answers. A torn piece of suit, layered footprints, a single trail into shade that vanished in hard ground. The search widened. Henderson County deputies and Kentucky State Police walked fields and fence lines, flagged dirt roads, and canvassed the houses tucked along the timber. Boats idled along shallows. A helicopter ran the river bends. The first press lines fixed the story's bones. Daylight, a gun, a bearded man, a witness with a telescope who had seen too much from across the water. Tips came as they do, many, messy, some worth time. A farmer who had set up a camcorder to catch vandals on his land captured a red and white Ford Bronco on tape the day Heather vanished. Another caller said a red and white Bronco sat by Heather's car at the beach. Within days, that model was on every radar screen. A name followed quickly. Marvin Ray, Marty Dill. Early 30s, lived in the area, owned a red and white Bronco, heavy build, beard, known to run back roads. Days later, troopers stopped Dill for a traffic violation. What they saw hardened their interest. In the vehicle were 2 guns, 2 knives, rope, duct tape, and rubber gloves. There were bloodstains on the inside of the tailgate and a hair that looked like Heather's. The sketch and Dill's face lined up enough to keep pressure. Investigators drafted a search plan. On September 7th, as officers moved to Dill's Henderson County home, the door closed and stayed closed. His wife came out at police direction. Moments later, a single shot sounded from inside. When officers entered, Dill was dead from a self-inflicted wound. The one person who could answer questions was gone. The suicide settled nothing. Prosecutors carried what they had to a grand jury to preserve the record and force testimony. Dill's wife appeared and invoked the Fifth Amendment. No indictment followed. The Bronco had the right paint, the right profile, and the right owner, but the case that existed in briefing rooms would never be tested in a courtroom. On the riverbank, a small cross went into the sand. In Madisonville, Heather's mother, Sarah Teague, began a long campaign built on paper and persistence. The file branched. Detectives knew another name, Christopher J. Below, a Henderson native later convicted in Ohio in the disappearance of Catherine Fetzer. He had connections in the region and left the state the day Dill died, a fact that kept interest on him. The telescope witness never wavered, naming Dill as the man on the beach, but investigators kept a parallel file on below and ran both threads. Searches flared and cooled as months turned to years. The Ohio gave up driftwood and rumors, but no body. Dive teams gridded off eddies near bends. Dogs worked shorelines. In Reed, a well behind a country store drew attention. Bones found there proved to be animal. Time hardened facts as hope thinned. Sarah Teague fought for the paper trail that often outlasts memory. When agencies balked at releases, she filed appeals and won. She gathered affidavits, recorded interviews with people never sworn in court, and drove to any rumor that sounded like a lead. On her table, the case lived in stacks: sketches, maps, recovered item lists, dispatch logs, letters from people certain they had seen something, and sometimes from people who recanted. The work kept the file moving when official momentum slowed. The story picked up new dates as it aged. In 2024 and again in 2025, near the 30th anniversary, Kentucky State Police announced renewed work. Tips sent people back to the Reed well. A forensic anthropologist said plainly the bones in the bucket were not human. In late August 2025, troopers exhumed a body at Fairmont Cemetery, Marvin Ray Dill, for DNA purposes, then reburied him 2 hours later. A tent and a backhoe in summer heat made the evening news. It suggested a promise. Let the science speak where the suspect never would. Underneath the reassessments, the spine of the case has not moved. Shortly before 1 p.m., a witness across the river saw a bearded, bare-chested man walk out of trees, raise a pistol, seize Heather by the hair, and drag her into cover. A fragment of her suit lay near that spot. A red and white Bronco was captured on a farmer's video and reported beside her car. Its owner matched the sketch, was stopped with weapons, rope, tape, gloves, blood on metal, and a hair like hers, then shot himself as a warrant team arrived. Heather was never seen again. What keeps people talking are the human edges that stick. The telescope on a back porch that turned a quiet habit into a lifetime of testimony. The beach itself, small, unguarded by anything but common sense. The walk from towel to tree line took seconds. The distance from tree line to answers has taken 30 years. Ordinary details lock the memory in place. A folded paperback, a red plaid suit, cicadas under a helicopter's thump. For the people who lived it, the timeline feels like furniture. The call through a dispatcher's headset, the sketch taped to a door, the traffic stop, the suicide, the grand jury, the appeals, the anniversaries. When police exhumed Dill in 2025, some took comfort in the motion. Others asked what would change if DNA only confirmed what many already believed. Either way, the work put the case back in front of everyone and pulled the same photograph into frame. There is no conclusion, only the next step. If testing from the exhumation connects to preserved evidence, a hair from a tailgate, a trace from duct tape, it will add weight to the state's view. If it does not, attention will swing again to the parallel file and the small map of a beach thousands know by heart. The line that matters most runs from a towel in the sun to a gap in the trees, and from there into years of questions. The last certain image of Heather is someone at ease on a public shore. Everything after is a witness's voice, a mother's files, and a county that learned how little daylight protects you when a determined man decides it does not. On anniversaries, people park by the pull-off and watch the water. The river looks harmless until you remember how sound can be swallowed and someone can be gone between breaths. The file is thick. The space it cannot fill is hard. Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. Subscribe for more true stories, if you dare.